And go.
Hello, Fight Insight fans, listeners, viewers. You've got Princey D, Timmy B.
I'll take it.
All right, we're going back 90s nicknames now. That's the aliases that we're going in. Timmy B, Princey D.
You know what? That's going to fit in well with my Fight On-Site pick at the end. Because my guy has a relation to a 90s R&B band. So
no, can you stop? Really?
I'm not even kidding. And that was not even planned. So that's pretty funny.
Tim, I think we might have to push this for a full hour if that's the case.
If it's about 90s R&B?
Yeah, why not, man? I grew up on that stuff.
Yeah, of course. Me too.
What? Okay, so listen.
I'll just tell our guest that he's not going to be on the show today. So that's okay.
All right, so Fight Insight fans, we've got a really special event for you today. We've got actually our very first guest that's coming on. That's going to be, talking about a very important topic, right? Mm-hmm. And so actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to medical topic, because everyone, you know what, Tim? Everyone was probably going to think that, hey, you know what? These guys are probably going to throw a fighter in here.
Yeah,
these guys are probably going to throw
typical guess.
The typical, come out with the MMA fighter, but no.
We're saving those.
We threw a curveball at you. Okay, so we are actually going to throw. You know what? Now we're going to talk about a very important topic. And Tim, I think I'm going to get you to introduce our guest.
All right. Well, it's a great pleasure. When we do have quite a few guests lined up, and we've said it on our Instagram, we've said it on our YouTube videos before, our podcast before. But if you're interested in being a guest, whatever you want to talk about, you want to promote something, you want to share something, just message us. Prince, they message us at
fightinsidepod@gmail.com. You already know.
Oh my God.
Was that too quick? Let me just fightinsidepod@gmail.com. Just
beautiful.
A little bit.
So our first guest, I have known this gentleman for, I want to say at least 20 years, probably. The first few years, I knew him just by vision alone. I never actually met him. I'll share that story later. But our first guest, he's a chiropractor. He's been treating injury victims for about 20 years, 9 years as a kinesiologist, and the past 11 years, he's a chiropractor. He deals mostly in orthopedic, spinal cord, and head injuries. He is here to talk about calf kicks and what they do. I'd like to introduce my friend and soon to be your friend, Dr. Demetrius Stavros. Dr. Demetrius.
Hey guys.
Actually,
before
we begin, I feel intimidated now. 11 years of practice, I don't know.
Oh yeah.
I don't even know. I'm really not good around authority figures. The inner Filipino starts coming out. So I'm
I'm just like you guys. I'm just a fight fan. I'm like you guys.
Yeah.
Okay. So what do we do now, Tim?
So before I will say how I know you, Jim. So do you mind if I say how I know you? So
please.
When I was in kinesiology at York University, I had my posse. There were other groups, other posses, and in one posse, there was a guy that looked like a European soccer player. He had the haircut could only be if he was a famous European soccer player. It was long curls. He had such a unique look, and I never talked to him or whatever. Years later, I'm at a desk job, and boss says to me, "Hey, look, you're here because this guy's going off to chiropractic school, and you're going to take over his desk, and he's going to mentor you, show you the ropes of the job. This guy's amazing at what he does." And in walks the Italian Greek soccer player, and it's the guy from York University, and we recognized each other, right?
Yeah, and it's so funny you mentioned the hair. So much of that hair has just run away from the rest of my head. But it's so true though. But it was. You're right. We've known each other for almost 20 years now, man. It's crazy, and we've always kept in touch. And I really appreciate that and respect that too, Tim. Because I count you as one of my best friends, and we've always shot information back and forth and questions back at each other. So, and I'm honored to be on the podcast with you guys today. I'm super excited to be here and share some of my information with you guys. And hopefully we get to do this again, because I think that I'm hooked. I'm what are we, 5 minutes in and I'm hooked.
Yeah,
so,
it's good. No,
you see, right?
My plan is for Dr. Demetrius, and I mean, I call him Jim, I call him Jimmy. Prince, feel free to call him Dr. Stavros.
Jimmy's good.
When you introduced him, it was like, Jim, and I'm like, I thought his name was Dr. Demetrius. I'm like, I swear it was Dr. Demetrius, but he's calling him Jim. I'm like, okay, there must be something wrong here. But
I do want to say, and I do thank Jim, because he helped me along in my career. One of the greatest things that he taught me that first week, like we were supposed to spend the full week just doing the job. Amazing foosball player. He is amazing foosball player. One of the best.
So funny. I spent way too much time at the chiropractic college in Toronto playing jit. We had a table there. It was fantastic.
Yeah.
Way too much time playing jitsu. Yeah. But thanks, amazing, man, for the compliment. That's awesome.
Yeah, no, awesome. So we are talking today. When we did a second podcast, Jim, that we deleted because it was so bad. And but in that podcast, we talked about the McGregor and Dustin Poirier fight, and we talked about the fact that they're saying that it's going to be a rematch for the title. Okay, I mean, kind of a weird pick because Charles Oliveira is in the mix. What do you think? Like, should that be for the title? Is that the next title shot for that belt once Khabib gives it up?
I don't know. I think quite possibly. The thing is, like, McGregor had been out of fight. He hadn't fought for such a long time, and I mean, I guess you could arguably say that the ring rest was there. Just look at the outcome of the fight. It's not to say that, he's still not, like, he's a spectacular athlete. The guy's an incredibly good fighter. I think I guess you could make a pretty convincing argument that those two would potentially have been fighting next for the title when Khabib, or if he does, we don't know yet, when he gives up the title. So, I think arguably you could say that is the case. Yeah, I think so.
Well, there was only one answer for that, because if you had said no, this whole segment goes out the window. So,
okay, so you know what? Let me ask you. So, Jim, who would you pick? Conor or Dustin?
Like pre-fight, I would have gone with Conor, knowing that he had won the first time around, and I mean he's proven himself. Like, look at what he did with Cerrone. Like, I honestly expected that to be a much longer fight and much more intense fight. And McGregor really, I don't know, like, he really stepped up that match, and he really showed how, like, his skill as a fighter. But if I were to have chosen between the two, I would have said McGregor. Yeah, the shoulder strikes, and he showed it again. I've never seen someone with such a devastating pop. Like, that's just like the way that he's able to throw that shoulder. It's awesome, amazing.
So you're saying that Dustin versus Conor 3. So your pick is Conor.
I think so, because I think he's crafty. He's a very intelligent fighter, and I think that he's going to learn from this. Because again, like, if you want to talk about second fight, the first round, arguably, I would say that Conor was winning that fight in the first round. He had the better strikes, I feel. There's a couple of great instances where you could see, like, he had rocked Poirier. Like, there's this one beautiful combo he threw, this jab with, like, a lunging, like, a bizarre angle right cross, and just right across the face of Poirier, and it stunned him. So I think he's going to learn from this. I like the skill of McGregor. I know Poirier is a phenomenal fighter, and obviously he's proven himself in the second fight, like, really, like, cerebral fighter with the way that he took out the leg. But if I were to, and I'm not a McGregor fanboy. I love all of these guys as athletes. I think they're phenomenal. But if I were to make a choice in round 3, I think, or in fight 3, I think I'd have to go with McGregor.
Oh my gosh! Listen, Tim, I already love this guy. Listen, Jim, you know what? I knew all along. So, guys, I've known Jim. You know what? Just throwing this. I've known Jim for
5-6 minutes.
About 5-6 minutes. Actually, we met during a podcast in the lobby, and you know what? The first, caught my eye. I'm like, hey, this guy, he's a great guy. And
it's the beard love, man. It's the beard love. That's what it is.
Oh my God! I feel like love, right? Mine's coming in though. I was trying to grow it. So, okay. We've got this fight coming up, potentially for the title, whether it is or not. But I mean, that fight is coming. So the reason why we brought Jim in here, and Dr. Jim, the reason why we brought him in is because he has trained Muay Thai before. Trained for how many years, Jim?
Oh man, I was training at Siam #1 under Ajahn Suchart years ago, and I started when I was like 19 years old or so, and then I continued when you and I were working together. I continued training then, and then I actually went when I went to chiropractic college in Toronto. The course was so demanding that I couldn't get in consistently enough. So I actually spoke with Ajahn Suchart, and I said, could I start up a club at my chiropractic school to teach, beginner level Muay Thai? And he gave me his blessings. And I actually started the CMCC Muay Thai club when I was there. And it was awesome. Like, I put up the ads. I put out the ads at the beginning of the year. Like, I started in the second year that I was there. I put out the ads, Muay Thai classes, come, check it out, whatever. Every year for the 3 years that I was doing it, the first class was like 20 people. And then after the first class, the second class, there was half that number. And then the class after that, there was half that number. And it was just there was a dedicated like 3-4 guys that would come out and throw down, because it was like a proper intense Muay Thai class. It wasn't like Taibo, it wasn't like a fitness thing. It was proper intense. I had everything. I had the 6-foot long bags, the target pads, everything. And it was all, every year I would submit for funding for the program. And yeah, man, we had a great time doing it.
Nice.
And it helped me, stay with it, which was, and I really appreciate the opportunity that I had to do that. And, but now I've gotten older and things quite aren't exactly the same. I've been training a little while, but I still love to hit the bag. If I go to the gym, it's hitting the bag.
Yeah. I mean, you know how hard it was to like publicize things back then, Prince? Because Jim and I are so old. Like, he would have had to have been cutting out those signs out of construction paper. There's no such thing as internet back then.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, he was at his desk cutting signs, cutting lettering, gluing them up. Like,
I was flipping signs, like on the corner.
Yeah.
But people don't. But people don't know. Like, I mean, Siam 1 was like one of the first gyms to pop up in Canada and in Ontario.
It was the first.
The first one,
and it started in the basement of a restaurant. I think it was Royal. Don't quote me on it. I think it was Royal Thai, but I mean, there have been champions that have come out of there, like Clifton Brown, Simon Marcus. Like, these guys are phenomenal fighters, and it's because it's true, proper to the old school style of Muay Thai, and like, just watching the technique too. It's beautiful. Like, that's the thing I love about Muay Thai. It's a beautiful art.
All right. Well, we're going to talk about some of that technique now, because the reason, I mean, aside from, as you can tell, Jim's an amazing guy, the reason why he's here is because he's talking calf kicks 101. So, Dr. Stavros, when you watched the Poirier-Connor fight, what was it that you saw happening in that fight, specifically around the beginning of round 2? Like, what happened there? And take me through when you want. I've got photos lined up, so take me through when you want.
Okay, so
you know what? Before we begin, you know what? For anyone that's actually just watching this podcast and doesn't know a thing about what calf kicks are, Jim, I don't want to. Sorry to put you on the spot, but can you explain what a calf kick is? Because it'd be like, if I'm watching this podcast, like, so you're just kicking a guy in the calf.
Well, what is a calf?
What is a calf? What is a calf kick?
So it's the lower leg.
Show your calf.
Okay, so you know what? Why don't we do this? Why don't we pull up image number 1?
Okay.
Yeah, so you can actually see it there. So
let me get rid of this thingy here. Hold on, that's embarrassing. There you go.
So right there, what you see is Poirier throwing they're both southpaws. So his rear leg, his power leg, is his left, and what he's doing is he's striking the lower leg, McGregor's lower lead leg. And he's striking it below the knee. You can hit it on the outside, you can hit it on the inside of the knee. But in this particular case, it's the strikes to the outside of the knee that made the big difference in this fight for Poirier. And so, like, Tim, you're asking, like, what did I see happening in the second round? You can see that the tactic changed for Poirier, and when he started attacking the lower leg. So McGregor, the way that he fights, he tends to have a pretty long forward right leg. He has a pretty long, almost Taekwondo-like side stance. And if you watch him throw his strikes, he has a tendency to really move that leg pretty far forward when he throws his punches. And so what Poirier started doing, and you can see there's at least 5 or 6 devastating low leg kicks. He started attacking the outside of the lower lead leg, the right leg, because McGregor would plant hard on that foot. And the checking, he wasn't really checking as you would expect to see like a Muay Thai fighter check. He had that foot really planted. But it's because of where the strikes were landing. And in this picture in particular, you can really see I've highlighted it with the red circle there. That particular location there was the reason why McGregor eventually ended up complaining that he had a dead leg. So
right. And you hear that term, dead leg, right?
Yeah, exactly. So Tim, if you could put up the second picture there.
Yep. Got it, boss.
Oh, okay. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Ooh. So now and hold on one sec. This is why listening to our podcast is amazing, especially on YouTube, because we've got photos up as we go. So, we want you to subscribe on iTunes, Google Podcasts, Spotify, wherever, but on YouTube is where you're going to get the most. So go ahead, Jim. Yeah. You've got the photo here.
Okay, so you can see the image of Conor McGregor's leg here. Not only is it red, it's very swollen. And it was at this, I believe this is the end of the fight, he was complaining that his leg felt dead. His leg it wasn't functioning the way that it should. It's because of the location where Dustin Poirier was striking the lower leg, the lead leg of Conor McGregor. So, Tim, if you could pull up the next image.
Yeah, so, and now you're going to go through like what causes dead leg?
Exactly. That's exactly what I'm going to do. Yeah. Okay, perfect. So this is an image of the lower leg. The larger of the two bones is the tibia. That's the weight-bearing bone, but this is also the bone that you work on strengthening when you're striking in Muay Thai. So this is the striking bone. The one that's highlighted in green is the fibula. It's not a weight-bearing bone, but it's an important bone for muscular attachment. But most importantly, there's a nerve that wraps around the top part of the head called the head of the fibula, which is what was impacted repeatedly by Dustin Poirier when he was striking Conor McGregor in that part of the leg.
So it's that he's hitting into the bone behind the calf?
Yeah, exactly. So if you could, let's pull up the next picture.
Okay.
Okay, so circled in red there, you can see that there's a nerve that comes down from behind the knee. So the two bones that you see, one stacked on top of the other like that, the femur's above, the tibia's below, and then you see the head of the fibula. That's the common fibular nerve, and that nerve comes down from behind the knee, and it comes right up underneath the head of the fibula where it splits into two different nerves. So there's the deep fibular nerve, and then there's superficial fibular nerve. When you repeatedly get hit in that part of the leg, like Conor McGregor was getting hit, you can damage the nerve. And the reason why that's important is because those two nerves that break off from the common fibular nerve, they supply sensation to the lower leg, so the outside of the lower leg and the front of the lower leg to the foot, but they also control very important muscles of the lower leg that if you continually hit with blunt force trauma, that nerve, the muscles they basically can go dead. And that's what ended up happening with McGregor.
And so when you see those fighters that are like heavy on their front foot, or like, or where they're planting on their front foot to throw their strikes, right? Especially like Conor's going to be throwing his cross, and he's going to be planting hard on that front foot to throw it.
That's right.
Hitting this even a few times is going to cause him to have some instability in the ability to kind of plant hard, right? So that takes away the power of his left hand.
Exactly. And that's the thing, when this is a very superficial nerve, you can actually tap this yourself. Like if you put your hand on the outside of just below your knee, you can feel the head of the fibula, and right underneath that is the nerve. You just kind of run your hand a little bit behind it. And there's
even if you're super jacked, like I did leg day today, Jim.
Like Tim, if you're super jacked, if people are super jacked like you are, then yeah, you're not going to be able to tap it. But there's a nerve there. And if you tap that nerve, and if it's been irritated, like I've had a lot of patients that have had tib fib fractures from car accidents and so on, and that nerve will get affected. And you can tap the nerve and you'll get a tingling sensation all the way down the side and front of the leg to like right between the web of the first two toes. So that goes all the way down to the foot.
And so, Jim, I apologize. I have no control over where this photo appears on screen. If you want to shift over a touch here, no, the other way. Then we can see you. Like this is prime FaceTime here for Jim. So if you stand here, then we can see you a little bit better. So if I'm training and I want to train to throw these kind of calf kicks, it's not necessarily, I mean, thanks to you now, I realize I should be aiming higher than what I probably would have thought I'd be aiming at. Like you want to hit it where it's closer to that insertion, or where it hits that top part of the bone.
Exactly. If you want to numb the leg, if you want to make the leg go dead, that's the area that you want to strike. So a strike to the calf is really painful, but if you really want to affect the function of the lower leg, and just going back to your question from before, if you damage this nerve or you make this nerve go numb, you can't elevate your foot. So there's a movement that the ankle does called dorsiflexion, where the foot goes up like this. You need that when you're walking or if you're fighting, because you need to be able to raise your foot when you're taking steps. You're not dragging the foot across the floor. If you make that nerve go numb, you can't lift the foot. So you literally are like slapping the foot while you're walking along. So that is the area that you want to strike. And here's the other thing too. Not only can you damage that nerve, but it's, again, the bone is very superficial. With sufficient blows, you can actually cause a fracture of that bone, of the fibula. Now, it's not weight bearing. They're not likely going to cast it. But even then, like, enough trauma can cause not just damage to the nerve, you can cause damage to the bone. And of course, you can cause damage to the muscles in the area as well. And that's what happened with Conor McGregor's leg.
Jim, so let me ask you a question. So you want your actually a professional opinion here and your medical consultation as well. So say I was sparring with Tim and say he's wearing like knee pads and covering that area. Like, how would I go about cheating in order to cause this damage?
I would start with the takedown.
Go with the takedown. But specifically, start with the takedown. So specifically, if I really wanted to, like, say, Tim in particular, how would I go about, damaging this area specifically? I mean, what can you do? You do have the pads on, but how, someone like me, an avid Muay Thai practitioner, I'll let you know right now, actually. So my record is 0-18.
But some of those were close. Like the knockouts were like late in the third.
Okay, so Jim, I'll let you know now. Actually, I've never ever stepped in a fight ever. I've actually the 0-18. I've actually just included the fights I had with my brother, my dog. I had a little disagreement with my mom, but you know what? We resolved it with conflict resolution and good active communication, which is something that we're trying to promote. And and also the sparring matches I've had with Tim. And Tim usually, he pulls out right away, like, and for, like, it's ridiculous. But sorry, Jim, go ahead. I just thought I'd throw that in there.
So hold on. But I want to ask. So again, going back to my original question though. So I am aiming for the inside or the outside of the leg.
The outside of the leg.
So outside is better?
For that particular nerve, yes. If you want to affect that nerve and the function of the lower leg, you go to the outside of the leg, just below the knee, and that's where the nerve is. Yeah.
Okay, and that's where you were saying we could feel, right?
Yeah, you could literally tap the nerve in that area. Exactly. It's kind of like, think of it like this. You ever bang your funny bone? Let me see if I can get it there. Your funny bone is right there, right? It's the same idea. When you bang your funny bone, it shoots tingling all the way down your arm. But with a situation like this, with the continual blunt force trauma that McGregor had sustained from Poirier, it's more than just a one-time bang stinger. Like, this is something that is going to end up, well, you look at the suspension that he had. He had a 6-month medical suspension because of the trauma that he had sustained. And it wasn't just the nerve. There was a lot of edema. There's a lot of swelling in the lower leg. There was a large hematoma. So there's this big pooling of fluid in his lower leg because not only was the nerve damaged, but he suffered muscular trauma as well.
You know what, Jim? Let me ask you: how do you feel about the knee shots? Like how about, like, you see a lot of fighters use that knee shot. How do you feel about that? Like, your own opinion, like that knee shot.
If they're gonna come and see me for rehab, then please, by all means, go ahead. But all kidding aside, I don't know. I think
like, as a Muay Thai practitioner,
I have mixed feelings, but because I feel like you could potentially cause some permanent damage in someone's knee with knee shots, right? Like, I think that it depends on what level of competition you're at. But if you want to, you got to respect the other fighters, passion for the sport as well, and you don't want to take that away from them with the potential of there being some damage to the knee. Like, if you strike from the outside to the inside of the knee on a planted leg, you could potentially cause trauma to the inside of the knee where there's a ligament called the MCL, and that's physically connected to the meniscus, which is the cartilage in the knee on the inside, the medial side. So you can cause trauma to that, and then that takes the fighter out for a while, right? If it's, if we're talking like pro level fights and you're like, there's prize money and you're going for championships and stuff like that, there's rules to these things, but it's a high level competition. But if you're sparring with your buddies, you're throwing down at the gym, you got to respect the fact that the person is, potentially at equal level as you are. And I think that you should respect the fact that you could potentially cause some injury there.
Yeah. And so you talked about the 6-month medical suspension. That's the idea there, is that the suspension gives the fighter enough time to recover from that injury fully. Like, is there fully? So there would not be long lasting damage potentially to Conor's leg.
That's right. So an injury to this nerve, so the common fibular nerve, so this type of trauma, like this type of blunt force trauma, typically you expect the symptoms to resolve within 2 to 4 weeks, right? Or about 2 to 4 weeks, or 6 to 8 weeks, depending on the extent of the damage. But if there's a lot of trauma that's there, it can take up to 4 months. And then we're also talking again about the muscular tissue injury. So 6 months is a sufficient amount of time to allow for the nerve to recuperate, the muscles to, the damage to the muscles to be repaired, and also for the rehab, because that's another important factor here. He's going to need the physical therapy in order to be able to return to the sport at that high level of competition.
Yeah. And so I don't know if you felt that, but that was the whole country of Ireland, like, cheering that Dr. Stavros said he will recover 100%. I mean, that is like big news, right? You heard it here first. So defense against this?
Proper block, like blocking the kicks properly, check. Right? Yeah, proper right? Checks, right? Like you got to check properly, right? Because and again, but it's hard to say that as someone, like, I'm not an MMA fighter, right? Like it's a different game. It's a different sport from Muay Thai. With MMA, someone like McGregor, who has his pedigree is in correct me if I'm wrong, I believe there's Taekwondo and karate in his background, but it's a different stance. It's a different technique, and it's important in the way that he fights, that he's able to throw the power behind his shots. Like, he's an extraordinarily accurate striker. Like, his punching is very accurate, but he's also very long in his limbs. Like, if you look at the length of this guy's arms and the way that he's able to throw his punches, but also by incorporating his body into those punches, the stance works for him. It's just in this instance, I think Poirier and his team found a kink in the armor, and I think that was what they were able to exploit there, which is what they used to their advantage.
Yeah, I mean that was that calf kick. No one would have thought that it was going to do that much damage, and the fact that and the thing is that I felt like Conor was off his game. Like, you usually see him when he comes up, he's loose on his feet. He's bouncing back and forth. It was like he had a lot of like that boxing stance, right? Yep. So I think for part 3, you're gonna see him like back to his old form. Back loose, keeping his distance. Working picking his shots. I think that's what we're gonna see, right? So. But yeah, Jimmy, you said you picked Conor and I picked Conor, and Tim picked Dustin. So 2 versus 1, I guess we win. Like,
Tim, I still love you.
It's a done deal.
Yeah, right. So
wow. Sorry, Tim. Prince and I are boys now. I'm sorry, man, but I still.
That's it, man. That's it. Pissy D, Jimmy S, baby. Yeah.
I mean, just so you know, I control the program, so. Like, I mean,
you see, Jim, this is the nonsense that I've been talking about. I just get sent the link, and I just I talk, and he controls he can mute me if he wanted to.
Yeah, half the time he's muted, he doesn't know. It's
no, you're not. You see, you like the you guys like that. That was good. I didn't even hit the mute.
You convinced me. You convinced me.
You see it, right?
Acting skills.
That's what it is.
All right, so. Before we move on, before we get to our fight on site for this week's podcast, is there anything else, Jim, that we should know about calf kicks, about what that feeling is, about we went through the defense, went through how to do it. I mean, this is good for people that are training in MMA too, right? So now you've explained to them like where they can hit that as well as what the defense is. Because I mean, if your opponent comes at you and starts throwing those, hey man, you've got to be prepared to protect against that.
Exactly. Yeah, I think. Well, I mean, you guys can probably agree with me on this. I think that we're seeing a significant uptick in the use of this one technique in the last few years in mixed martial arts. Like, again, this is something that it's come out through Muay Thai. A lot of the striking techniques that are the most effective in MMA are Muay Thai based techniques. So Yeah, I think for an MMA fighter, this is something definitely that I think that they should start incorporating into their arsenal, because if you have a front leg heavy fighter, then you can exploit their technique and with properly. And that's the other thing too. Poirier has impeccable timing. Like, in order for him to be able to throw those strikes against such a fast fighter like Conor McGregor, you have to have good timing, which means you got to train that. So that's something that I would recommend as to throw into the arsenal, because it's a very effective technique. You might not cause the same sort of damage that Conor McGregor sustained, but you can still get the person thinking twice. When you whack that area there and they get a burning sensation and tingling down their leg, they'll think twice about coming at you hard with that front lead.
Yeah. So or they're going to be so preoccupied with worrying about checking that kick. Exactly. That it's going to open up other things, right? So
exactly.
Yeah. All right. I mean, that was incredible, man. Jim, I'm so glad that you came on here to help us talk about that.
I love being here.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. And you're going to stick around now for the next segment?
For sure.
You're okay? Time-wise, you're good? All right.
Yep.
Our next segment, so our podcast, we're recording this on the day that our last week podcast drops. So by the time people are seeing this one, they already know what we're talking about. We're talking about Fight on Site.
Fight on Site, baby.
Fight on Site.
Here we go. Jim, I'm so excited, man.
Okay, so this is good that Jim is here because he is a Muay Thai practitioner. He coached or taught Muay Thai to a bunch of chiropractors. Well, at least 3. And,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And so this week, Prince and I are both picking a Muay Thai fighter to go up against each other. We can pick any age, any day and time, any whatever, any era, whatever it is. We pick. We talk about their predominant keys to winning, and then we ask the fans to vote. I think what we're doing is we're asking them to vote on the Saturday following the release. On our Instagram story, we're going to put it up. And so, you vote to see who you think would have won that battle. And that's like our little interaction with the fans. So this week, Muay Thai fighter, Prince, who's going first, me or you?
No, I think you should go first because
I went first last time, maybe.
Jim, you're my fighter.
All right. I went outside the box here on my pick. So I'm going to move my face to the main screen here, Jim. So I'm going to move you over. I apologize. I know you're the guest. All right. So my guest, sorry, not my guest. My guest is Jim. My fight pick for this week is none other than my buddy, Mr. Khalil Roundtree.
Okay.
By the look on your two faces, you don't even know who this is.
No, I know who he is. And I remember one of the most recent fights that he had, like one of the more recent ones that he had, his Muay Thai looked sharp.
That is why
very sharp. Yes.
That is why
I remember it was beautiful to watch. Very, very good technique. Yeah.
So Khalil Roundtree Jr., the Warhorse, he was on Tough, one of the seasons of Tough back in 2016. The guy his life story is pretty cool, and they documented it in Tough. But at the age of 2, his father was shot dead. He was the tour manager for Boys to Men, which is crazy. So there's our 90s R&B link. The guy grows up. He admits he was like overweight and whatever. And then around the age of 20, he starts to pick up Muay Thai, starts to pick up fighting and gets into it. And now he is a high level professional athlete, right? The guy was great on Tough. He did train at Syndicate MMA, where there's a bunch of our favorite fighters. Roxanne Modafferi trains out of there, but a bunch of guys out of Syndicate. But in 2019, he moves to Phuket, Thailand, and trains at Tiger Muay Thai, right? Where I have always wanted to go. My God, if you see those, they're online. It's incredible. Prince, weren't you and I going to go to Tiger Muay Thai?
Listen,
we talked about, right? We were talking about going on a trip to Thailand.
Jim, listen. Pre-COVID, we had this whole plan. We're gonna go to.
This was years ago.
This is years ago.
Yeah,
Tiger Muay Thai. We're gonna go there. We were gonna do the whole.
You stay on site.
On site.
So cool.
Oh yeah, that's a legendary gym. Legendary. Yeah.
So anyways, Khalil moves there. He trains there. If you see him, like the evolution, just even in his physique, the guy is enormous jack now. Like, I don't know what he's done, but he has put on the muscle, and his Muay Thai striking was so good. Like, so good. And this guy's record, 8-5-1. It's not the greatest record, but the guy is a new fighter. He only started training at 20. He's got so much room for development. I feel that with his hunger, so here's my things, Prince. This is why he's going to beat your guy. Hunger, the ability to learn and adapt as he is, like he is growing and learning. So even what we see him as today, he's getting better and better. And his Muay Thai. I feel like him being at Tiger Muay Thai with all the UFC high-level fighters that are there, Muay Thai high-level caliber fighters, this guy is growing. He's moving. I predict big things for this guy. This is my Muay Thai fighter. This is my fight on site pick.
Okay. All right.
Boom.
Tim,
Done.
thank you for
give
joining.
up?
Okay. You know what? Oh my goodness. I wish I had a mic because I would drop it right here. Jim, look at this. All right. I've got a special one for you, buddy. Okay. So
hold on.
fighter...
I'm gonna move you into the big screen here, Prince, so that I give you the respect.
Okay. Thank you. Please. It's my turn now. Okay. It's my turn to speak. Or it's my turn, please. And please, can we please remove your fighter, please, right here?
All right.
Meg,
say goodbye. See you later.
So not appropriate. Here we go. Jim, what? Okay, listen. Okay, Tim, I wish you picked a better picture. So the fighter that I picked is not only Saget Patendi.
Yep.
See, Jim already knows. Did you hear the
confirmation?
The confirmation.
Yeah.
The validation. Thank you. Here we go. Oh my gosh, my heart's racing. Oh my goodness, I don't even know where to begin. So Saget.
To be fair, this guy was hard to find good photos of.
There was, man, like Tim. There was you can go on Google. You put the man's name, and there's like him when he was in his like 20s, man. But look, okay, and you picked the geriatric picture. That's unbelievable. This guy, unreal. Like Jim, you see what I got to work with. Yeah, but that's fine. That's fine. That's okay. That's okay. So because once people start to hear about the information on this guy, so Saget is not. He's a professional Muay Thai fighter, 3-time Lumpi champion. 3-time Rajandeem champion. I can't pronounce it properly, but that's what it says. And the kickboxing world champion. This fighter, professional not even before even the Muay Thai, professional boxing record, 14 fights, 12 wins, 8 by knockout, 2 losses. Muay Thai record. Jim, you listen to this? Listen to this. 317 fights. 266 wins, 151 by knockout, and just, merely 40 losses. But that's fine. Okay, and on top of that, something to add on for viewers who see who's Saget. I don't know if you guys ever played a video game. It was popular in the 90s and early 90s. It's called Street Fighter.
Never heard of it.
It's called Street Fighter. The first boss that you had to face in Street Fighter #1 was a fighter. Jim, I don't know. Maybe you would know. Like, who was the first fighter that the first boss?
The first boss is Balrog.
No. Who was the first ultimate boss in Street Fighter? Jim, please go ahead.
I think he had something like in the later versions of the game, a tiger uppercut, a tiger knee. I think it was Sagat. I think that's who it was, if I remember correctly. Yeah. That's right. He was the first in the first Street Fighter, not Street Fighter 2, Street Fighter 1. It was Sagat.
Okay, and okay. No. It's just
Wait,
my.
Is that real?
No, listen. I'm on the big screen now, Tim. You got to let me just finish. Can you let me finish, please? Please. Okay. Thank you. This guy right here. If you ever see, in terms of this guy, in terms of his skills, he was known for his upper elbow. So his up elbow. So it was known to just break guards. Literally, if you see his fights, the guy's squaring up, and this guy's guard is like tight. Saget would just come in there, up elbow, just every time, and he would connect every time. and he threw side teeps. He was a king of side teeps, and this guy would just the opponent would just go flying across the ring. So, you know what? Up elbow, side teep, and a swing kick. These are the three moves that I think would destroy your fighter, Tim. Like, hands down. Like, come on, I've got a fighter who has been based on they've based a whole character, a whole game out of this man.
I think Khalil Rountree's in UFC 4. EA Sports UFC 4. I think he's in that game.
The demo version. Saget's name is on Street Fighter, man. Like, Jim, what do you, Jim, you're a doctor. What do you think?
Oh man, we're talking about a golden age of Muay Thai fighter in Sagat. Like, the man is he's from like, you know, we're talking about the time when, you know, kickboxing, American style kickboxing and Muay Thai, they would go head to head, and, you know, you'd see these competitions to see which guy would Van Damme, yeah, exactly, yeah. Or like, I forgot the guy's name. Anyhow, but we're talking golden age Muay Thai with, you know, that type of pedigree. But we're also talking, and again, just going to Roundtree, young, skilled, hungry, and the man is huge. And, you know, like, again, I love the technique that he displayed the last time I watched him fight. It was just pure Muay Thai. It was beautiful. Oh, this is such a hard call, guys. And it's
not a runaway, Prince. It's not a runaway. That's all.
No, Jim, just be honest. Be honest. Okay. Using your own Muay Thai experience, your work in the medical field. What do you think?
Your desire to ever come on this podcast again, Jim. Your desire to ever be here again.
This is why it's not an easy call. I gotta say, you know what? I'm going to be honest with you guys. I got to go with Sagat on this one because of the fact. I'll tell you why. We're talking again about someone who has trained probably since he was like 8 or 9 years old in Muay Thai, and that's like, it's the national sport of Thailand. These guys start young, and they have the technique, they have the skills, and you know, just one of the techniques that you talked about is the up elbow. That's something that's from, again, that's that golden age Muay Thai. That you don't really see so much of that anymore, especially because, like, you know, well, just going back to that, it's this beautiful skill set that these guys possess, and I love Roundtree as a fighter. And here's the thing: give Roundtree, let's just say we had Roundtree train for another, you know, 5 years. He's got his MMA experience. He starts and he's doing like some. No, seriously, 5 years of Muay Thai, 5 years of MMA. I know the guy's getting a little bit older now, but let's just say that he had the window, because we're also talking about Sagat at his prime. We're not talking about Sagat now, right? Yeah. So Sagat at his prime, and then Roundtree, who's not yet at his prime. We're talking about a guy who's still, I think he's still fresh.
Exactly.
I think he's going to continue to improve, and I think he's going to shock a lot of people. Then it's going to be a much closer fight. But, you know, if we're talking about Roundtree right now, and then, I mean, it's a hard call. Sagat at his prime, not Sagat right now. I got to go with Sagat, but Roundtree when he's at his prime, it's much tighter, man, because the guy's got the power. The guy's he's got beautiful technique already, and he's got the power. So,
hey, Jim, has anyone ever told you that when you speak, you sound like a church choir? Like, it's so soothing, and it's just like, man, and the information you give, it's like straight to the facts, and you know what, and it's correct. But you know what? Before we even, you know what, you know, before we even say that, you know, okay, you know, I was right, and that we have to put it in the fight on-site simulator.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so the fight on-site simulator. So Jim, just a little background on the fight on-site simulator. So this was actually a program that I developed.
Awesome.
It's actually 6 years in the making. A lot of programming. And a lot of the fighting skills that, you know, the fighters that we just talked about have been input into this program that I developed over the years. Just, you know what, it's something I've been working on. And since the podcast came on, I felt like, you know what, I should just show it.
Reveal it.
Show it to the world. And like, you know, Jim, I'm so glad that you're here to see it, because I know that, you know, you probably see a lot of programs and stuff like that. And so this is right here is the fight on-site simulator. Just 1 second here. I'm just uploading the system here. So
again, this is why you need to be watching this on YouTube, because I'm sure there's going to be a visual treat.
Okay.
Oh my goodness.
So
who
on our red corner, we've got Sagat, represented by two Marvel characters. We've got Deadpool on top and Venom in the bottom. Jim, I know it's too much to handle sometimes. Just bear with me a little bit.
I'm in awe right now.
It will look better. It will look better when I edit this in post, Jim.
Yeah. So, oh my goodness, oh man, I don't know if it's my MacBook can handle this much data, but we've got Deadpool and Venom represented as Sagat.
Again, for those on Spotify and iTunes, it's stickers again on a popsicle stick.
It's a fight simulator. Tim, can we please?
Yeah.
You're embarrassing me in front of my friends. Can we stop, please? Yeah. And for Tim's fighter,
Khalil Roundtree Jr.,
Captain America's shield.
I just get an inanimate shield.
That's it. And so here he goes. Jim, if you want, you can go ahead and make some noises too, if you want. Go ahead, Jim. Just go ahead, please, if you can help me out.
This is why you're here, Jim. Forget the medical training.
Okay, come on, do the Muay Thai. Come on, come on. You're throwing the swing kick.
Tiger,
and then throw the swing kick. The swing kick. What do we say? And bam, there you go.
Money's worth.
Guys, after going through the fight simulator, it looks like, Jim, who do we see on top?
We see Sagat on top, it looks like. That's some pretty incredible fight simulation.
Half of a Sagat. Right,
oh, gosh. I've blown my whole life savings into the simulator. And I don't know what else to tell you. Like, we've got Jim who's decided to, who's picked Sagat. I picked Sagat, and and the simulator itself, look at this. Like, you know what, this place, it's blown into smithereens. Like, what else can I tell you? Like, Tim, you've lost again.
We don't know, because again, when this podcast drops Saturday, all day Saturday, on our Instagram story, we will have the poll. It gives you a good 4 or 5 days to listen, watch our podcast, think about it, deliberate, talk to your friends, tell your friends to subscribe, tell your friends to go watch Fight Insight Podcast on Instagram, Fight Insight Podcast on Spotify, on iTunes, on YouTube. Message us, email us, DM us, email fightinsightpod@gmail.com. And then Saturday, vote for your favorite. Vote for the winner, which you're going to have to go against Prince and medical training up here, but
listen, the fight simulator, what else can you ask for, Tim? There's it's like years and years of data inputted into the system, and we've got a winner. That's it. Right. Winner, chicken dinner, baby.
Before we go, Dr. Demetrius Stavros, we are so happy to have you. I'm going to move him over to the big screen here. Dr. Demetrius, we are so happy to have you as our first guest. The explanation of the calf kicks was incredible. Really appreciate you coming on. You're a great guy. You like you said, you're one of my best friends. Been a great friend for 20 years. Been one of Prince's greatest friends for 45 minutes.
Yep.
And we hope to have you back. Before we let you go, where can people find you? Would you like to plug anything? If they need treatment?
Look me up online. You can Google my name, Demetrius Stavros. You'll find you'll find me on Radies. You'll find my contact info there. Feel free to check me out. And I actually look forward to being back here, guys. I want to do this again. First of all, you guys are a blast. This is tons of fun. I love being on here and chatting about this stuff. And I got a passion for this, just like you guys. And I'm happy to lend my limited amount of expertise, I suppose, but this has been so much fun, and I wish you guys the best of luck with this. You guys have a great platform, a great idea, talking about stuff that I know a lot of people love, and you guys are going to kill this. I'm really proud of you guys.
Listen, Jim, what do you want for Christmas? Okay, I'm going to send it right over, buddy.
He's taking notes, Jim.
Yes, go ahead. What do you want for Christmas? I've got expired Timmy's cards coming your way.
No, I just want to be back on the show, Prince. That's what I want. I just want to be back on the show.
We're gonna make it happen. We're gonna
make it
happen.
Yeah. All right, guys.
You guys are awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We'll see you next week. Have a good one, guys.